Sorry, someone's knocking on the door, on the next door neighbor's door. Okay. So whenever there's a rulership of a sign, it's encouraging. Your understanding is going to try and embrace that. It's like it's in a relationship to try and justify that energy. And it's that energy that will be good or bad. So if you have a planet in a sign, like Jupiter in a sign, it's going to search for its understanding or its justification or its principles or its morality based on the qualifications of that sign. So your sun can be anywhere, your moon can be anywhere, but if your Jupiter's, well, we started before, we'll start with Cancer. If your Jupiter's in Cancer, it's ruled by the moon. Your understanding is going to be based on whether your family was lucky, had abundance or didn't have abundance, was always poor, was always rich, whether you had security, whether you had lots of food to eat, and you're going to encourage the ability to eat. So Jupiter in Cancer has a natural encouragement to eat, to increase, have a feeling and magnify it, to encourage the importance of feelings, or it's the difference of dreams and moods and feelings, and of what mom and family and these factors. So the Jupiter is trying to understand, but it's going to develop its understanding most from the domestic sense of what's right and wrong. And how many family experiences we have. There's all, if you had more, I go back, sometimes I look back at my family and I think, I had the best upbringing ever. I grew up on the edge of a river, climbing trees, climbing hundreds of trees, being out in the river, fishing, working with, swimming, and I think I had the greatest kids life. Everything's fine outside in terms of nature, but then when I look back and analyze it, I came out of an alcoholic, abusive family and a very poor family. So with a lot of violence and anger. So I can look at, sometimes I can get an understanding, my Jupiter's in Scorpio, where I can look at all these negative judgments and think, boy, everything was so bad. But really, when I think of the things I did all sorts of things that no kids wouldn't be able to do today. And I benefited from those experiences. So, funny, the Jupiter there specifically is influenced by family, mother, mood. So you begin to expect the mother's attitude and philosophy, your family outlook is going to affect your family outlook. Or how many kids you might want, or what kind of home you want. The Cancer is going to be throwing its influence onto the Jupiter, and you're going to see the moon influence that your basic needs are going to exaggerate. It's so important to have a chocolate pie now, or two. It's so important to have this. We've got to go here. We've got to. I feel like a Coke. I feel like a drink. You're going to exaggerate and expand on the feelings, and by expanding those, your other actions, your other planets will move to get them. You collect experiences, and you may learn from being overweight, or from having too many experiences. So the abundance of Jupiter is the abundance of experiences that can guide your understanding. It doesn't mean the abundance is always good. If it's a wrong understanding and you have abundance of wrong actions, you're going to have an abundance of guilt and sorrow. Okay, so when it's in Leo, it's ruled by the sun. So Jupiter is going to understand, it's going to be understanding things based on how noble, how proud, how creative, how confident you are, and how you have a role to be more confident. So your understanding is geared to be best, or to shine, or to be noticed. So it's going to have understanding how to get attention. At 2 years old, at 10 years old, at 15, at 20, at 30, at 80, it's still going to be going on how to get attention. The understanding is geared to that. If it's a wrong understanding, you'll be encouraging getting attention for the wrong way. But if it's a good understanding, you'll get it for noble ways. So it's not where your sun is in your chart, but it's the sun in the sign that's ruling it. So Jupiter has to aspire to how to help someone get their creative pride and personal creative experience, how to get that experience and how to learn from that experience. When Jupiter gets into Gemini or Virgo, it's in the sign of detriment. It's in the opposite sign to what it rules. This is the most difficult place of Jupiter in Gemini or in Virgo. Why? Because these are the mental signs, and mental deduction and thinking is a very different thing from experiential contemplation. Being able to think this is this, and have all your facts and be able to think about it, that's mercurial. Having understanding and comprehension, means having a sense of how this what this implies to other people and how other people affect you. It implies a philosophy of morality. But when it's in Gemini or in Virgo, there's a tendency to exaggerate. The understanding tends to be more mental, and you tend to think you know more than you do, and it can really cause exaggerations like driving too much or talking too much or choosing too many things. It goes out in too many directions and often has less to show for it because it doesn't accentuate the discipline so much. It accentuates the curiosity of the Mercury. So there's a need to try and get the understanding to try and teach the thinking. Well, what you think and how you behave socially and the social implications are two very different things, but they can affect each other. So with Jupiter there, you're searching for mental answers. You're searching for good education, for understanding things right, for thinking clearly and expanding your thinking. So Jupiter in those signs, it's always a good place for adding a language or having a second level of being able to think about your understanding. But because it's in its detriment, not in Sag or Pisces where it's most natural, because it's independent, it does tend to exaggerate or speculate on things, perhaps disproportionately, more than is socially relevant. Okay, you have the Jupiter in Gemini, Jupiter in Virgo, depending on where the planet is. Someone buys you a drink and you talk all night about everything until people don't want to even listen to you anymore. You're talking too much, or thinking too much, or worrying too much. But you understand, you want to express your understanding, but no one wants to talk about all those worries, your understanding of all those worries. It can be really funny, but in which case it's often too funny and not always socially sensitive. So I'm not trying to define, I'm just trying to let you see how I'm making the associations to get some meaning and some sensitivity out of this. I mean, words are the lowest form of astrology. Colors, frequencies, vibrations are much higher ways of perceiving through astrology. But we're using words to learn, to develop it, so I'm using them as best I can. I'm sure there's many other people who use words much better than me. But I've done my discipline around these areas, so I've cultivated a certain capacity to express myself here. Now, so I mean, when you get to a chart, you start getting a whole bunch of things. I have Jupiter and Scorpio, but my Mars and Mercury are conjuncted, so there's an aggression, there's an axis of exaggeration, there's responsibility, all these things. It gets to be very complicated. This is not the stage that we're at. I want you just to look at the one planet, the understanding, the morality, and see how it's colored, what your tendency is to think, and how it works for you. You are the definition of how it's working. So this ability to see that you can use these pieces of information and see them function this way and make the bridge from the theory and the knowledge to the experiential reality of a person, that's the magic of astrology, when it's used right. Okay, when Jupiter goes into the Venus ruled signs, Taurus and Libra, on a gross level, there's a tendency to exaggerate what you want, which means a tendency to overindulge or overspend, or have too expensive things, want too much. I gotta have this, I wanna have this, I gotta have this, I want too many relationships. So it exaggerates the charm, exaggerates the desire to get things. So it increases the indulgence of Venus. It's challenging all that glitters isn't gold. So you're going into the vices of vanity, of lust, and if you're in a negative state with Venus, you're going to exaggerate the vanity, exaggerate the lust, and exaggerate the desires of what you want, and spend too much money or not be in control of, have too many relationships or attract too many people or too few. You're going to get attitudes around this. But it's the Jupiter. So I'm seeing why Venus rules Taurus and Libra. But when Jupiter's there, it's going to, if it's in Taurus, it's going to exaggerate the things you want, and understanding how you have the things you want, or how unfortunate you were if you didn't get the things you want. You're going to have understanding developed around the things you've gotten, and what appreciation, what material things, what love, what matter. With Taurus, you'd be expecting, do you have the house you want? Do you have the clothes you want? You'd be seeing that a person is encouraged to have better and better things. In Libra, it's about having a more and more refined relationship and using charm in relationships, not so practical, but more about sharing and understanding. I have this, can I share it with you? Come share with me. Let's do these things together. And the understanding is going to be geared towards, it's going to want a good understanding that draws attention and gets appreciation. And Taurus is going to develop an understanding that's good, that's going to get paid. So these are quick associations. They're simple, but they're still, you can see how the Jupiter influence in that sign is. See, Jupiter's not influencing that sign as much as that sign's influencing the understanding. So the rulership is the best. It's when there's, if you're whatever sign Jupiter's in, the rulership of that sign, it's the best expression of that sign. So Jupiter is going to encourage the best expression of what's valuable for Venus and Taurus, and who's valuable and who you're sharing. Are you married or not? And the understanding that comes from that is going to happen with the Jupiter in Libra. And over a lifetime, it'll be the lucky times I'm in a relationship with the unlucky times when I'm not, or who did what right or who did what wrong. The understanding is going to be tied up to relationships and ideals, but with a definite Venus quality. When Jupiter goes into the Mars signs, Jupiter in Aries, Jupiter in Scorpio, its understanding is going to be geared towards gaining experience. And the differentiation between the gaining and the experience of Mars, the right understanding, I'm going to do this, I want to try this, I want to ride the bike, I want to get a snowboard, I want to get a motorcycle, I want to go dance, I want to play ball, or I want to do something. That the Mars is inclined to do that. And the Jupiter is trying to develop the understanding that will encourage that. I mean, that wanting of the Mars in Aries to be impulsive, to be strong, to do things, Jupiter is going to value that as a commodity. It's going to encourage noble activities, a noble battle, a noble impulse, but it often can encourage wrong ones when it's negative, wrong understanding, wrong impulses, uncontrolled actions, uncontrolled use of force, and arguments. There's a tendency to, Jupiter would have a tendency to argue for what it believes in Aries and in Scorpio, but argument is almost the reverse end of understanding. If you're arguing, you've already lost the understanding and you're in the bounds of misunderstanding, even if you're perfectly right.